As I played through Cocoon, there were so many little moments that stuck out to me which illustrated how painstaking the development of this game had to be. This game is proof that puzzle games don't have to be super complicated or difficult to be good. Hyper Light Drifter, Journey, Titan Souls, these are all great games that have no explicit text or descriptions, but you still just like get them. That's like, how do they do that? The left stick and the A button. To have a thoughtful, engaging puzzle game, use only 2 different inputs for the entire game, front to back, even with new powers and mechanics introduced along the way, is so impressive. The simplicity of it is really refreshing. It makes the game extremely accessible, and it lets the player know, for every single challenge in this game, these are the only 2 ways to interact with the game world. And how does the game even tell you this? Well, the main menu contains, I think, the only piece of text in the game. Press this button to start. So at this point, you've already familiarized yourself with half of the game's controls. Then you're seamlessly taken through a short cutscene and playing the game. And this is where the game makes a small assumption about the player's game knowledge, and that is that you'll eventually try wiggling this left stick to move around. But a few seconds later, when you come across this thing, it's very intuitive to try pressing the only button that you've been asked to press so far. Something else you'll notice as soon as you start the game is this. Some people, myself included, might feel a little bit of anxiety on seeing this, like, what if I wanted to go back and explore? What if there was some secret I missed? But the game constantly cuts off a lot of backtracking because it's trying to save you time. You never have to go backward. There are no alternate paths or anything, and for the handful of collectibles in the game, you can easily find them after beating the game with a very nice chapter select menu. By cutting off backtracking, Cocoon keeps your brain contained in a certain amount of space. If you get stuck on a puzzle, it's extremely helpful to know what your boundaries are, and if you're able to walk backward for too long, you might start to get confused about which tools are supposed to be available to you. So the game really cares about keeping you focused on one specific puzzle at a time until you figure out that one specific solution. Something else that Cocoon does very often, and sometimes very subtly, is forcing you to understand a mechanic before progressing. And this is probably my favorite way to learn how a new game mechanic works. Before every boss fight, the game forces you to interact with the main mechanic of the boss fight in order to start the fight. In the entire beginning of the game, you are forced to understand the mechanics of jumping in and out of orbs and carrying things and powering these alien devices. It happens right here at the scene I mentioned earlier. You cannot progress unless you understand that these are switches that you can interact with. You can't really just stumble into a solution for anything in Cocoon. You have to understand the mechanics of what's been shown to you and figure out the solution and then intentionally carry it out. But teaching the player the mechanics of your puzzle game and having them understand with no text is a huge ask. And Cocoon, like, really does it. Like, it's good. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good game. A lot of this stuff also comes from really good visual and audio feedback in Cocoon. For anything you can interact with in the entire game, your little buggy boy starts vibrating his wings in anticipation. Come on, press the A button, man. I'm dying here. This little platform communicates very clearly, hey, try pressing and holding the button. This little pedestal is begging for you to place your little world ball here, and the orange power flow in the wire matches the color of the world ball, which clearly tells you that this orb is powering these platforms. And on the audio side, because Cocoon is extremely linear and the solutions are so exact, the game can detect when you're on the right track and bump the intensity of the soundtrack to really give you that I feel like a genius moment. In this puzzle, the danger goo keeps stealing your little buddy robot from you. Listen to the satisfying audio that happens here when you complete the steps to avoid the danger goo and save your robot buddy. I think maybe the biggest compliment I could give to Cocoon is that I couldn't imagine trying to verbally explain some of the later puzzles in the game to someone who hasn't played the game. But while playing the game myself, all of these solutions just felt so seamless and like they just made sense because of how well the mechanics are communicated to the player. I won't spoil the story of Cocoon, but I will say it is a little subjective. It's certainly clear what your character's ultimate goal is by the end of the game, but the steps along the way, like the boss fights and the history of these worlds, is all up for interpretation because there is no text. It shares a lot with Journey in that way. There's definitely some history here, but you're never intended to learn it explicitly. But even without text, the game can still create some really powerful story moments. Slight spoiler warning coming up. There's a moment in the game where you do a series of puzzles in order to reveal something which turns out to be one of these exit platforms. You've been using these to leave whatever orb you're currently inside of, except this one appears at a point where you're under the impression that you're already outside all of the orbs, which sparks a genuine burst of curiosity like, wait, how far up does this thing go? Where am I exactly? To make the player question the boundaries of the game world just by showing this platform and correctly assuming that the player will understand the implications, it's a small moment, but it really speaks to how effectively this game teaches you how its world works, both mechanically and narratively. Doing all of that while having this be the only piece of text in your game is really impressive, and it's gonna make Cocoon stick with me for a while. Thanks for watching. Maybe smack the little
Okey dokey
button or the button if you like this video. And if you played Cocoon, tell me what your thoughts were in the comments. And if you haven't played Cocoon, then I don't know, like maybe go play it. It's, you know, it's on Game Pass if you have that. Like it's pretty good. It's a pretty good game.